Hello children, how are you all? I hope you all are hale and hearty, you all are fit and fine. My name is Tanya Sharma and I welcome you all to the PW Gulf in the Succeed Ultimate Recap batch for class 9th. Today we are going to start the chapter of history, that is Pastoralists in the Modern World. We'll complete this chapter in one shot in a very less minutes, whereby we'll do a crisp revision and a very easy revision of the entire chapter, also covering each and every topic. Let's get started without wasting any time. Alright, so the chapter name is Pastoralists in the Modern World, very easy chapter. Hereby we'll understand first about what do we mean by pastoralists. Pastoralists, if we talk about peasants, if we talk about farmers, and the third category is pastoralists. So farmers, and when we talk about peasants, they are related to agriculture, but on the other hand, when we talk about pastoralists, they are not exactly related to agriculture, right? Also, when we talk about pastoralists, they are not stable. They move from one place to other. They do not settle at one place. Also, they are known as nomads, right? So first of all, we'll understand what do we mean by nomadism as a way of life, whereby these people do not settle at one place. They're constantly on move and hereby moving from always one place to another in search of livelihood, in search of a lot of food, in search of the trade. Also, what is the main thing which they do? That is, they have a lot of cattle, whereby they serve these cattle and they find a basic place to serve their cattle. That is why they move from one place to another, right? Let's get started. We have a lot, we can say, categories of nomadism. Also, we call them as pastoralists. Okay, so the first one we call as mountains nomads. Hereby these people or these pastoralists are always found on the mountains. Okay, they are always found on the mountains. So this is how we understand the nomads, or we say the mountain nomads. Okay, the first the category will be of the Gujar Bakarwals. This is the name of the nomads, or here we call as pastoralist. Okay, again they are found in India. They are found in Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir is in the northern part of India, and definitely we know that it is a very cold area. Also, mountains and hills are found. So, and the place will be Jammu and Kashmir in the mountains. Now they are pastoral nomads who move in groups called kafila. So they move in groups. Definitely they do not move individuals, they move in groups, and these groups are known as kafilas, right? Next, their movement are governed by cold and snow. Now definitely they will not be able to survive in a very cold area. They will not be able to survive in a very snowy area. So what is their movement? So their movement depends on the snow and the colder temperature. In winters, when high mountains are covered with snow, these Gujars move down to the low hills. They belong to the colder areas, they belong to the mountains, but when there is so much snow, it's very cold, they will not be able to survive, so they move downwards. So that is their movement. They belong to the mountains, but they move downwards towards the hills, right? When the temperature is very low, it is very cold and very snowy. Okay, so they move downwards. So this is their position. They move downwards to the low hills of the Shivalik range. And also by the geography, you know that the mountains, the parallel regions of the mountains are divided. How? Himadri, Himachal and Shivaliks. So basically Shivaliks are the low hills, and whereby Shivaliks, when we talk about Shivaliks, we find a bit of land also. Hills and land. Not that snowy mountains are found there, right? Then on the onset of summer, now when the summer season is there, definitely the snow will melt. So now what will these people do? They will move upwards, because now there is not so much of snow available at the mountains because it's summer season. So when we talk about the summer season, when the snow melts and the mountains become lush and green, these pastoralists move back to the mountains. Now, why do they want these lush green, lush green fields? Because they actually want to serve these, they actually want to feed their cattle. Okay, so pastoralists always will have, a herd of cattle with them. So that is how we refer to them, because they move from one place to another. They really want to find lush green fields to feed their cattle. Next, the Gadi. Now, this is the first category of the mountain shepherds. Now, second one will be, the first one was the Gujar Bakarwals and the second will be Gadi shepherds. Now, this is the category. Now, they are found again, they are of the Himachal Pradesh. Again, the mountain areas, Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. Okay, have similar cycle of movement. Similarly, they move like this. When there is so much of snow, they move downwards to the Shivalik range. When the snow melts in summer, they move upwards. So this is how they proceed. Then the place is Himachal Pradesh, have similar cycle. They also spend winter on the low Shivalik hills and summer in the Lahul Spiti. So again, the area differs. Hereby they come towards the Kashmir Valley. Okay, and here we have Lahul and Spiti, which is again at the top. Clear? Alright, then we have the next category, that is known as Gujar. Now first, Gujar Bakarwals. Okay, second we have done which category? We have done the Gadi shepherds, and now we have again the Gujar cattle herders. Now these people are of Kumaon region and Garhwal. Now Kumaon and Garhwal are basically on the Uttarakhand side of India, right? So they spend their summers in Bugyals and winters in Bhabar. So again now, almost a similar pattern which is followed here, but the names will be different. Here they spend the time in Bugyals and their winters in Bhabar. Again, the area differs. It's not the movement up and down, it's movement basically left and right. Okay, so the Bhotia, now this is the fourth category, this is the third category hereby, and we have the fourth category known as the Bhotias, the Sherpas and the Kinnori. Follow the cyclic movement which help them to adjust the seasonal changes and make best use of pastures. Now basically, as I told you, the pastoralists have a lot of cattle. They need to feed their cattle. So to serve and to feed their cattle, they need pastures. Now what are pastures? Pastures are lush green. Okay, so pastures are field obviously, okay, which are lush and green. Now why do these lush and green? So now why do these fields or why do these pastures have to be lush and green? Because again, the animals or the pastures, all these cattle have to feed on these pastures. That is why they have to be lush and green, right? Let's proceed forward. Now here we understood the so if we talk about India, right? If you talk about India, so India's physical features, if we talk about India's physical features, so when you talk about India's physical features, you will find mountains, okay? You will find mountains at the top, that is the northern mountains. Then you will find plains, that is also known as northern plains. Then you will find plateaus, okay? Plateaus are the table-like structures. Then you will find coastal areas, okay? Coastal areas whereby you find water on all the sides, okay, beaches, and also you'll find a desert area. So this is how in India you'll find all the physical features. Okay, I'll draw a very rough map of India to show. Okay, it's just the rough map of India. Okay, it's very, we can say, not a small one. I'll draw a big one here. So this is the plateau region. Here you find the desert area. Here you will find the mountain area of India. Okay. So this is how somewhat India looks like. So when we talk about the mountain areas, here you will find the mountains. Okay. Let me make myself more clear. Okay, this part you will find a bit of desert area. You all must be clear what is desert. Okay, this part you will find plain area. Okay, northern plains. This is known as plain area almost. Okay, this part is the central part. Okay, this part. So this is also known as central highland. Okay, so this part is known as central highland. Highlands or plus some of this part is also known as Alright, so some of these parts, see, for example, this is how India physical features lie. We have done in geography, but I'm revising it again. Why? Because India has diverse physical features, because India has different, physicalities and geographical features, their pastures, or we can say pastoralists and pastures, are also different from each other. So that is how we have divided the pastoralists also, the nomads also. Okay. Alright, so let's see here, I was using this color. So this part is also known as Central Highland or the Plateau region. And also, it is a peninsula because the water is on all the three sides. Okay, so see, this is not the complete map of India as we know, here and somewhat here. Okay, we have Lakshadweep Islands and Andaman Nicobar Islands, and these islands are part of India. So this is the complete map of India, otherwise it is incomplete. So when we understand these parts, we always have to make this part also. So this is a learning for you all. Okay, so now this area, I wanted to use a blue color. Okay, so when we talk about this area, okay, and this area, you can see it is a peninsula, water on all the three sides. Okay, also this is known as the coastal area as well, some of this part also. Okay, so the coastal area and some of this part is also mountain area. I have used different color here, so this part is mountain area also. Okay, so this is how India's physical features are lying, right? Because of the India's physical features and the geographical features, the nomadism, or we say the pastoralists, are also divided. So we have done the mountains, right? We have understood the mountains, the Gujar Bakawals, now we have done the Bhotiyas, all these which we have done right now. Okay, the Gadi shepherds, then the Gujars, the Bhotiyas, Sherpas and Kinori, all these are people, or all these are groups of people who belong to pastoralists from the northern part. Okay, now when we talk about the plateaus, plains and desert area, again, these are the physical features, right? The geographical features. So the plateau region, okay, the plain area, the plateau region, the plains, the northern plains and the deserts. Okay, again the pastoralists will be differed. Let's start with the Dhangars of Maharashtra. Now when we talk about Dhangars of Maharashtra, okay, they stay in central plateau of Maharashtra. As I told you, we have central highlands, okay, which is similar to the plateau area. Now what are plateau? They are table-like structures, okay. They are made up of rocks, okay. These rocks are basically made from, long ago they were made from the lava. So, and if you find beneath, what is the material? It is made of igneous rocks. They are all black. Why? Because it is formed from the lava of the volcano. So, and during the monsoon season, now during the monsoon season, the Dhangars stay in central plateau of Maharashtra. This is semi-arid region, and by October they begin movement towards the Konkan region. So this is how they move towards the Konkan region from the Maharashtra. Here, now what do? Here they help the cattle to manure the fields, and hence they are welcomed by the Konkani peasants. Now hereby, as I told you, some of the pastoralists actually not only have the nomadism way of life, but also they actually help other people. So they do trade as well, they do selling of other materials as well, handmade materials. Also they do some kind of business, commerce. So hereby, now when these people, now these nomadism or these pastoralists, you would like to use the word pastoralists. So these pastoralists of Dhangars, when they come on the onset of monsoon, they stay at their place, and their cattle is actually used by the peasants so that the soil can be fertilized, or the soil can receive a lot of manure, natural manure, right? As soon as the monsoon sets in, they retreat back to the semi-arid region of land of Maharashtra. So from Maharashtra, they come into Konkan region to help the peasants, and after that they go back to the Maharashtra. So this is their movement. They are not settling at one place. They are helping the people and then they are coming back. Next we have, this is the first, the Dhangars of Maharashtra. Next we have the Golas, okay, who herd cattle, and the Kurumas and the Kurubas. Okay, again names you always have to learn, who reared sheep and goat from the Karnataka and Andhra. Now they're coming downwards, okay, like south of India. So what they do, who rear? Now Golas who herd cattle, and the Kurumas and Kurubas. Now these are three categories. What do? They rear sheep and goat and are from Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. They are from Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, which is the south of India. They live near the woods, and in dry periods they move to the coastal tracts. Now when there is not so much of monsoon, they move towards the drier tracts, okay, which is the coastal areas. They move towards the coastal areas. I told you the peninsular part is the coastal area, right? So this is the second part. Now hereby we have talked about the coastal areas and the plateau areas, right? Now the third one, we are talking about the desert areas, okay. So desert area are the Banjaras of Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra. They move to different places. Now they are not going to one place. They are moving differently to different places, and they are finding pasture for their cattle. Okay, now this fourth category, we have Raikas of Rajasthan. Okay, we have Raikas of Rajasthan that combine culti. Now these are the different categories. Earlier which we have done, they do some kind of trade, they help peasants. Now when we talk about Raikas of Rajasthan, they actually combine cultivation with pastoralism. Hereby they are pastoralists, okay, but they come for some time when cultivation is happening. So whereby they are helping the farmers, okay. How? When the grazing grounds become dry, they move to the new and greener pastures. So basically they combine the cultivation with the pastoralism. So this is the another one. Hereby they stay for some time period with the peasants, with the farmers, and then they move back. Okay, this is how, because their cattle will get, greener and more fields. Next we talk about, okay, becomes dry, they move to the greener areas, because again there is no green area, they move, because nomadism and pastoralism, they constantly on move, right? Now we talked about pastoral life was sustained by their sense of judgment to know how long one must stay in an area. So now we talk about these pastoralists of Raikas. Hereby they know that this is the time we have to be here, otherwise we have to move. So they have this sense already with them that this is the time we know that we will get green pastures, and otherwise when we are not getting green pastures, we have to move from this area. To know where they could find local food. So this is, they sustained by all these reasons. So these are the reasons how they are sustaining their life. How are they living their life? Sustaining means living. So their sense of judgment first of all, okay. Then to know where they could find food and water, again obviously the priority is to sustain their cattle plus their livelihood, plus the groups, like they are moving their livelihood also. Okay, food and water. To assess and calculate timings of the movement, they obviously they have to calculate the timing, so that, because it is seasonal, right? Most of the time it is seasonal, so they have to calculate the timings of the movement. Their ability to set up relationship with farmers, yes. Now hereby in some pastoralists, they have to maintain a good relationship with the farmers. So when they are maintaining good relationship with the farmers, then only they are getting some kind of profit, right? So that the herds could graze on the harvested field. So harvested field, so the pastures are there, they can actually feed the cattle, they can actually feed on the pastures, that is lush green area and the fields, whereby farmers have actually, grown some kind of stuff or some kind of crop. Under colonial rule, now everything was sorted, everything was, completely fine, things were going really great, they were having great time. But once, colonial rule came in India, once the colonial people from Britain came, colonial rule happened, India was a colony of Britishers. Under this, a lot of things changed. These people were, called as enemies, or these people were called as thieves, or they have done theft. Otherwise, they were living their life the way they want to. But Britishers wanted them to settle. Now, why Britishers wanted them to settle? Reason being, because Britishers and colonial rule cannot imply taxes on the, people who are constantly on move. They have to apply taxes on those people who are settled at one place. But these people were constantly on move. So basically, also as you know, British culture and Britishers, they had a very, different way of living. So according to them, it is very bad when you're moving from one place to another. So they did not understand their culture and their, things. So under colonial rule, when colonial rule came, the life of pastoralists actually changed completely. Their grazing grounds became less because again Britishers actually have, segregated the land area because they wanted profit, because they wanted everything. India had a lot of resources, so the forest areas or the grazing land was actually captured by Britishers and then also termed as protected, unprotected, right? So the grazing grounds became less, their movement were regulated, the revenues they had to pay increased, their trade and craft and agriculture produce declined. So everything coming of the Britishers actually was declining of the pastoralists because they do not like their structure and everything. Next, let's see what happened. Let's see how it changed. Okay, so we have a small we can say flow chart or mind map kind of a thing. Okay, let's see how it changed. Okay, so how it changed. First point, all grazing lands, all grazing land became cultivated farm. Now Britishers wanted something from which they can actually they can have profit. Ultimate goal was to have profit. Whatever India's resources, they always wanted profit. So first of all, every land, all the grazing land, they wanted to change into cultivated farms. So cultivated farms, nobody can come from outside and graze their cattle. So again, one part was again gone. Second, forest acts, they restricted and they made a lot of forest acts by which they restricted a lot of pastoralists. Okay, some customary rights were granted to them. Some of the rights were also granted, like forest was marked as reserved and protected. Some of the forest was kept like this, that you can graze your lands, you can graze your cattle. But again, those lands were not, again that kind of freedom was not given to them. So they were restricted, and earlier pastoralists did not had had any sense of this restriction. So this is again a very bad thing. Okay, now British officials were suspicious of these special groups, and now this was a time whereby, because they were not settled people, because they were constantly on move, because they do not have their proper houses and their life is just uncertain, Britishers had a different way of life. They had proper elite, the culture they had. So they sense that these people are not good people. They're thieves. They're not settled people. So the Criminal Tribe Act was passed in 1871. So they termed them as criminals. Okay, so which is again a very big thing. Fourth thing, taxes were imposed on cattle went up rapidly. Now whenever the pastoralists came and the pastoralists wanted their cattle to feed on the pastures, a lot of taxes were charged from these pastoralists. So this is again, taxes were imposed on them. And then what happened? The effects, because of all these things, what happened? First of all, natural restoration of pastoral growth stopped. Now again, when there is naturally things going on, and when you disrupt that natural thing, again some disaster will happen, and because of that there was declining, because pastoralists were not happy. If pastoralists are happy, they'll make their cattle happy by finding lush green areas. But when pastoralists are not being able to find lush green areas, again the cattle will never be able to be happy, and they'll never be able to grow in that area. Then cattle died due to scarcity of fodder, because they were not being able to get a lot of food. Serious shortage of pastures because of Britishers Criminal Act and the Restricted Forest Act. They were not getting pastures, and hereby pastures were declining, and they were not getting healthy things to feed their cattle on. Intensive overgrazing, and sometimes where they could find only some of the area, they could intensively graze their cattle, whereby because of this also things, or we can say pastures, declined. Then quality of pastures declined. Again same thing, only the quality also declined because of the intensive grazing. Okay, and also cattle also declined. So these were some of the effects. Now how did they start to cope up changes? Now some of the pastoralists were okay with it because they need to adjust with the environment, and some of the pastoralists were very sad. They actually gave up all these practices. So let us see how decline came and how they cope up with the changes. So some reduced the number of cattle in the herd. So some pastoralists actually reduced the number of cattle because again they were not being able to sustain them. They were not being able to help them to feed them. Some discovered new pastures. Some of the pastoralists discovered new pasture, and some actually rebelled. Some actually rebelled that yes, we will do all these things, you do whatever you want to do. Next, some bought land and began to lead a settled life. Now, whatever culture they had lived, okay, in the past, they changed their lifestyle and went to become more of a settled community instead of when they were constantly on move. Some poor peasants borrowed money to survive. In due course of time, they lost their cattle and sheep and became laborers. Again, they changed their culture and they actually became a laborer because Britishers forced them to become laborers. Okay, and force them to have this settled way of life and also to transform their culture and become laborers, forced laborers. Now, the Maasai changed their way of life. Now, when we talk about Maasai community, hereby we are not talking about Indian people. Hereby we are talking about totally a different country, that is Africa. So, how similar patterns were followed in Africa. People were very happy, pastoralists were very happy, but the coming of the Britishers changed their life. Now, this is a community, a case study which we are doing, that is the Maasai community. So, the Maasai cattle herders, now these are the name of the pastoralists. Now, these herders live primarily in East Africa. Rules, laws and regulations have changed their way of life again with the coming of Britishers. There are many problems which they have faced. Again, they faced a lot of problems. They faced many problems. The most prominent being continuous loss of grazing grounds. This was the main problem because if you will not get grazing grounds, so the pastoralists will not be able to feed their cattle, and definitely this will be the end of the entire community. So, scramble for territorial possessions in Africa. Now, this was again a very, they had to fight for it, they had to rebel. So, this happened in Africa too. Dividing the region into different colonies. Different colonies and the region was also divided in Africa. Okay, territorial possessions was also happened in Africa. Best grazing grounds being taken over by white settlement. Now, hereby there was a division. Okay, apart from being, having colonial rule, there were also apartheid system, right, whereby they were divided between the whites and blacks on basis of their racial discrimination. So, Britishers were termed as whites and Africans were termed as blacks. So, the blacks were not given their proper fair share. It's like coming to your house and saying that this is my house. So, again, this is what something we believe that this is unfair. So, no justice and unfair things happened. Grazing grounds became converted into cultivated land, similar pattern which was followed in India. Grazing grounds were converted into the cultivable land, and when this cultivable land was happening, they were forced, to be slaves. They forced these people like the pastoralists to become laborers, and they were forced to actually grow or actually become farmers and laborers. Okay. Now, grazing grounds being converted to cultivable land and national parks and game reserves. So, this was all conversion happened. Next, we have the cocoa land herders have faced similar fate. Again, the same community. Okay, they faced a similar. Now, this is again the name of a, we can say pastoralists in Africa. Okay, so confined to special reserves. Traditionally, pastoralists move from different pastures, but with restrictions. Because now restrictions happened, okay, on them, these pastoralists were confined to special reserves. Special reserves means whereby things are reserved specially. They could not move without special permits. Again, they have to take permission from the people, from the colonial people, to be very specific. They were not allowed to enter markets in white areas. Again, in India, this system was not there. But in Africa, apartheid system was more there, whereby because of the apartheid system, things were divided between whites and blacks, which was again a very major issue. Okay, whites and blacks. Alright, okay, they were not allowed to enter the markets in the white areas. Some tribes are affected by the Criminal Tribe Act. Again, Criminal Tribe Act was again enforced because they were not treated as people, they were treated as criminals, which is again a very bad thing. Even their trade activities was adversely affected. Now, why nomadism? Now, when we talk about nomadism, this is a simple note. Why do we say that nomadism should be there? Why we are not saying that it's bad to be nomad? Why we say that it is bad to be nomad? First of all, let us understand. Pastoralists are nomadic. This allows them to survive bad times and avoid crises such as drought. But later they could not shift to greener pastures and their cattle died of starvation. Now, why nomadism? Now, basically, they actually questioned this thing. Britishers actually questioned this thing. Why you have to be like, why you have to follow nomadism? You can have different lifestyle. You can have a settled lifestyle. You can, change your lifestyle. You can be laborers and you can earn great fair share. Why you have to be nomads? Why you have to be pastoralists? But again, this is their culture which was followed. And again, they questioned like, why are you not changing yourself? Why you are not basically, changing yourself so that you can actually lead a very good lifestyle. So this was questioned by Britishers. Okay. And this happened, and because of this, they were taken a lot of fair share from the British, from the pastoralists, and Britishers again left them with no, good situation, and things went bad. Okay, now Maasai communities, again, this is a thing which this is the last thing. Now, how actually the Maasai society or the Maasai pastoralists were affected. Let's see. So, when we talk about the Maasai society, they consisted of elders, okay, one point, and they consisted of warriors. This is the second point. Okay, so the elders, basically the older people, and second is the warriors, whereby they fight. These are the two communities where they were divided. Okay, now ruling. Now, who are the elders? These are the ruling group decided the affairs of the community and settled dispute. Now, these are the elder ones, whereby they are actually sorting the affairs like the elder people do. Similar thing. Now, warriors are young people, okay, who carried out cattle raids and defended the community. Now, because they were under the pressure of Britishers, they actually have to divide their communities likewise, so that they are not in the pressure of, doing a lot of surviving, basically, to sustain their livelihood. The British appointed chiefs to administer the affairs. Now, when Britishers knew that they had this community, now when the Britishers knew that they actually have the, entire, basically, a system going on, administration system is going on. So, Britishers actually started to utilize them in a very different way. Now, Britishers wanted actually this system to survive under them, under Britishers. So, Britishers appointed chiefs to administer the affairs of the tribe. These chiefs were wealthy and lived in a settled life, as they had both pastoral and non-pastoral income. So, now their actually system was changed because of the Britishers. They wanted to control the situation. The poor pastoralists passed through bad times and worked as laborers. There were two important changes. Now, their system was disrupted, and two important changes came, whereby Britishers actually wanted these people to survive according to them. This system should survive according to Britishers only. So, the traditional difference between the elders and warriors was disturbed. So, this was a traditional system made, right? So, this was again disturbed. Britishers wanted, you already have a good system, and they actually know what administration system means. So, they should work under us. Instead of working in their community, they should work under. This is what Britishers have done. And they came to be marked as difference between rich and poor. Now, hereby, instead of the, division of between the elders and warriors, they made a system whereby they made Maasai society divided, because they took some people out of the, the young people who could actually do a lot of things. They actually took these people and made them, somewhat rich people, and the older people as poor people, right? Now, let's see some developments within pastoralist communities or societies. Pastoralists adapt to new times. Okay, they adapted to new times, and they find new pasture, change their routes for annual income. Alright, so now they find new pastures, change their routes for the annual movement. Now what does this mean? This means that the pastoral society is actually adjusted to the new environment. And how they adjusted to the new environment? Because now from all other places they did not have a lot of we can say hope, and they were actually feeling hopeless, and because of this hopelessness they actually adapted, they actually shifted, and they actually had this sense of being that they will actually either they'll follow their own system, because which was again a very uphill task, so they will actually follow the new system which is under the Britishers. Now what happened? Let's see one by one. New pastors, they changed their routes for annual movement. If the things are not going straight, they are choosing a different way, right? Reduce their cattle numbers, press for the rights, whereby their rights were being, there was a lot of absence of rights. It is being advocated today that pastoralist nomadism is the best form of life suited to dry, semi-arid and mountainous regions of the world. Now, it is said that, it is advocated today that pastoral nomadism is best form. Okay, now because they actually somewhat helped the other people also. They were not criminals. They were made criminals. They were actually, tagged as criminals by the Britishers. Otherwise, this system was not bad. This system was whatever they wanted to do, they were doing. So, it is again right to life, right? Whatever you want to do, you are doing. Instead of harming others, they were not harming others. So, this is a system which kind of is followed somewhat in India, but most of it is declined. Alright children, with this, we have completed this entire chapter in one shot. If you have any doubt, you are free to write in the comment section. Alright, bye-bye children, see you next time.